Massachusetts Bay Colony, and is as it was. New England, 1692. A hostile land.
The Puritans thought of North America as the devil's territory.
The devil has been raised among us.
A supernatural enemy.
Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. It's a biblical passage.
I seen the creature suck on another witch's finger.
To levy a charge of witchcraft was to take power over another human being.
Salem besieged by Satan's witches? Or by madness? A corrupt court?
They told me if I confess, I should have my life.
A hanging judge?
We believed in what the court was doing.
What is your verdict? Guilty.
The true story of the Salem witch hunt.
Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive them that trespass against us.
In many ways, for many years, hath the devil been essaying to destroy the kingdom of our Lord Jesus here. But now, there is more than ordinary affliction.
October 1692. Residents of the Massachusetts Bay Colony believe they are being attacked by a conspiracy of witches. A hunt is on to root out the forces of evil. Trials are being held in Salem town. 20 have been executed, and over 100 accused witches are in prison.
The devil has decoyed a fearful knot of malicious creatures to lift themselves in his horrid service.
29-year-old Cotton Mather has been asked by the governor of the colony to write an account of the crisis.
The things confessed by witches and the things endured by others will be the subject of this account of our affliction.
It had begun 10 months earlier, some 20 miles north of Boston, in a tiny farming community. Salem Village is an unhappy place, filled with angry factions who argue over land and money and religion. There is a new church, but also a contractual dispute over the minister's salary. Reverend Samuel Parris, age 39. A failed businessman, he has only recently become a minister.
Some men laugh at sin, make a sport of sin. But the Holy Ghost tells us they are fools. Sin is the devil's vomit, the soul's excrement, the worst of all evils, the scum, the superfluity of evils.
Parris berates his congregation, hoping to shame them into paying his salary. Little does he know that a witch hunt is about to be triggered by events in his own home.
The mountain calls forth its waters.
January 1692.
Mr. Samuel Parris, pastor of the church in Salem Village, had a daughter of 9, Betty Parris, and a niece of about 11 years of age, Abigail Williams, sadly afflicted of they knew not what distempers. These children were bitten and pinched by invisible agents. Their arms, necks, and backs turned this way and that way, so as it was impossible for them to do by themselves.
At times they couldn't eat, at times they couldn't sleep or speak, and a doctor was called in. This was the traditional thing one did. But if the doctor couldn't understand what was going on, which was usually the case, the doctor would diagnose witchcraft.
Witchcraft is an accepted reality in 17th century New England. The invisible world, full of malicious specters and malevolent witches, is as real to most Puritans as the rocks and trees.
Witches were nasty people who went around cursing and producing damage. If you didn't give me something that I asked for, I might put a curse on your cattle, and 2 weeks later, your prize heifer might die.
It was a pervasive belief at the time. It was built into the legal code of the common law. It was a crime as well as a sin.
The crime of witchcraft is punishable by death. Cotton Mather had written a highly popular book 3 years earlier about bewitchings, including an account of 4 children named Goodwin, who, Mather said, were being tortured by invisible witches.
The Goodwin children accused a woman known as Goody Glover as the person who had bewitched them. Goody Glover was brought to trial. She seems to have been Irish. She claimed to only speak Gaelic. They tried to get her to recite the Lord's Prayer, and Cotton Mather says in his book that no matter how many times they repeated it to her, she could not recite it accurately, and he regarded that as a sign that she was a witch. It was believed that no witch could accurately say the Lord's Prayer.
Goody Glover was hanged in Boston on November 16th, 1688, for witchcraft. Witchcraft has its roots in folk magic. Since prehistoric times, there have been people who believe that charms and spells can improve fertility of crops and animals, fight sickness, show the future, or punish enemies. One early pagan god was half human, half goat. Early Christians added the wings of a fallen angel to make this their image of Satan. This cloven-hooved devil needed servants to do his bidding. So he recruited witches, generally women, occasionally men, asking them to sell their eternal soul in exchange for some sexual pleasure or earthly favor. The deal was then documented in his book, where the witch made her mark in blood. Beginning in the 1490s, European churches and church-controlled governments began an organized campaign to destroy all remnants of paganism. Over the next 150 years, an estimated 50,000 people are burned and hanged. But by the late 1600s, the worst of the European witch hunts are over. The world is entering a new era of secular government and science. It is a time of great change, and not everyone is happy about it, least of all the followers of a highly conservative religious movement, Puritanism. Puritans founded the Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1628. They called it their shining city on a hill, a frontier settlement run on strict religious principles.
Puritanism was a religious movement that had arisen in England in the early 17th century, and the idea was to purify the English church of the sort of final remnants of Catholicism.
Purification required a very strict interpretation of the Bible.
The Bible, which was so crucial to Puritan thinking, is very clear on the issue of witchcraft. "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live" is a biblical passage.
Witches, it is believed, can send an invisible shape or specter to torment someone without being seen. Betty and Abigail act as if they are being hit by invisible forces. But if the young girls are bewitched, who is bewitching them? The hunt is about to begin.
Time machine.
You are watching Witch Hunt on the History Channel. January 1692, and there is trouble in Salem village. The minister's daughter and niece are exhibiting bizarre behavior. The village doctor says the girls are bewitched, but by whom? A neighbor suggests a folklore method for finding the witch. Paris's slave woman Tituba follows the neighbor's instructions.
Paris's Indian servant afterward confessed that without the knowledge of her master, she had taken some of the afflicted person's urine, and mixing it with meal had made a cake and baked it to find out the witch.
This witch cake is fed to a dog who, according to folk wisdom, will point the way to the guilty party.
This clearly doesn't come out of Puritan theology. It comes directly out of popular magic culture, the kind of thing that Puritans were trying to suppress.
Reverend Paris is outraged.
A church member has gone to the devil for help against the devil. And by this means, it seems, the devil has been raised among us, and his rage is vehement and terrible.
Reverend Paris orders prayer and fasting to counteract the witchcraft. But the girl's strange behavior continues, stopping and starting unpredictably for weeks. Over 3 centuries later, it is difficult for us to believe that the children's fits were induced by invisible witches. But if they weren't bewitched, what was going on?
I don't have a theory about the first fits in Salem Village. What we do know is that the fits that the little girls in Paris's household suffered are very similar to the fits of the Goodwin children and other children in England and America who were raised in pious homes.
Children in 17th century Western society were not so much objects of affection within a family as they were sources of labor and young sinners who needed to be disciplined into good behavior.
We go astray as soon as we are born. Undutiful children are the children of Satan, and unto Satan they shall go into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels.
We can interpret it as children who are very deeply affected by concern for the ultimate fate of their souls. It seems to be a not usual, but not unusual kind of pattern.
But not all agree with this explanation. There are some who believe the girl's fits were triggered by poison.
There's a theory that poisoning as it occurred in Salem was basically due to contaminated rye that led to hallucinogenic effects and all sorts of physical symptoms.
Ergot is a type of fungus that grows on rye. People who eat bread containing this fungus have been known to experience nervous dysfunction. A victim twists and contorts in pain. In some cases, this is accompanied by hallucinations. In fact, LSD is derived from ergot fungus. But the ergot poisoning theory has been refuted by scientists and others.
Some of them should have died from it, and the fact that 1 minute they're perfectly well-behaved or at least perfectly normal in their physical appearance and asymptomatic, and the next moment they're having their fits or whatever, are inconsistent with the symptoms of convulsive ergotism.
The afflicted in Salem throw their fits in unison at convenient times, such as when people come by to see them. This fact has led many to believe that the girls were simply faking it. But if the girls are play acting, it is a deadly game. They could be accused of witchcraft themselves and hanged.
It's possible to imagine, with only a slight turn of events, that the accusations of witchcraft might have been turned against the girls themselves if they had not been asked, who is it that afflicts you, and have started to name names in the village. They themselves might have been suspected as the guilty parties.
Pressured by Reverend Paris to name the witch whose specter is attacking them, Betty Paris and Abigail Williams point to an obvious scapegoat: Tituba. Documents describe her and her husband as Indians. They are slaves from Barbados. She is dark-skinned, dark, like the Puritans' mortal enemies, the Wabanakis. As the original Puritan colony spread to the north, the English began to encroach on Wabanaki land.
In North America, of course, they found native residents. They believed that those people were worshippers of the devil. They also thought that the Native Americans did not really have a right to the land because they didn't cultivate it, and therefore the land was pretty much free for the taking.
But as the Indians see it, the Puritans are trespassers, and worse. When a group of Wabanakis come to a town to trade, the militia captures them and sells them into slavery.
They were mostly women and children. As you can well imagine, this angered the Wabanaki people to no end, and they were infuriated by the treachery that had led to the capture of so many of their people.
Starting in 1675, the Wabanaki tribes launch a series of wars against the English. "16 years before the Salem witch hunt on the main frontier.
Good night, Mercy.
Good night.
This little girl, Mercy Lewis, will play a central role in the Salem witch trials. At the age of 3, she is living in the town of Falmouth, Maine. The attack is swift and brutal. 23 women and children killed or captured, 11 men dead. Mercy's grandparents, aunts, uncles, and most of her cousins are among the victims. Years after surviving that Indian massacre in Maine, Mercy Lewis is 18 years old and living as a servant in Salem Village.
Some at our house were fighting for their lives. One who did was running and was shot. He begged of them his life. They knocked him on the head and split open his bowels.
A 10-year truce with the Indians is coming to an end. News is grim. The town of York, Maine, is in flames. 50 dead, 100 taken into captivity by the Wabanakis.
In January 1692 in Salem Village, it would have been bitter cold, and the news came from York about the Indian raid, not all that far away, and people must have been terrified.
Soon after hearing news of renewed Indian attacks, Mercy Lewis begins throwing fits, just like Betty and Abigail. And they are joined by others. Mercy Lewis works for the Putnam family. Ann Putnam Jr., age 12. Ann's mother, age 30. And Ann's cousin, Mary Walcott, 17. All are now acting bewitched. And it's spreading.
Salem Village is a very small community, and all the afflicted would have known each other very well. There were little girls, there were teenagers and 20-somethings, and then there were some married women who were also afflicted.
Asked who is bewitching them, several of the newly afflicted also accuse the minister's dark-skinned slave, Tituba. Since the younger girl's accusations cannot be used as evidence in court, these new accusations by adult witnesses are critical.
Witch! I will beat the devil out of you!
Now, legal action can be taken against Tituba. A terrible machinery has been set in motion. It will take 20 people to their graves.
Easy payments. Quiet comfort headphones. Hear the difference Bose technology makes.
You are watching Witch Hunt on the History Channel. March, Salem Village. 7 girls and women possessed by horrifying fits. They claim to be bewitched, and it is Reverend Parris's Indian slave, Tituba, who is invisibly attacking them. Formal complaints are filed, transforming wild accusations into a legal procedure, one that unfolded in a building much like this one over 310 years ago.
In Salem Village in early March of 1692, the fields were frozen, nobody was outside working, and the place must have been jammed.
Two magistrates from nearby Salem town, John Hathorne and Jonathan Corwin, come to Salem Village to conduct a preliminary examination to see if a trial is warranted. The accusers have been asked to point out the witch who torments them. What happens next is recorded for history in official transcripts.
Tituba, what evil spirit have you familiarity with? Why do you hurt these poor children? What harm have they done unto you?
They do no harm to me. I don't hurt them at all.
Why have you done it?
I have done nothing. I can't tell when the devil works.
No. Have the devil told you he hurts you?
He has seen the devil? No. He tells me nothing.
Hathorne was an experienced magistrate, and he had obviously examined many accused people before. His purpose was to elicit a confession from her. It was crucial to get confessions. To get a conviction in a capital case at this time, you had to have two witnesses to the actual act. And so, therefore, the easiest way to get a conviction was to get a confession.
What is it you converse with all?
The devil, for aught I know.
What appearance? Or how does he appear when he hurts them? With what shape? Or what is he like when he hurts them?
She's a person who has lived the life of being a slave. She's been hit before, and maybe it dawns on her that she'll get hit worse. And so she tells the stories that she tells.
Yesterday, I being in the lean-to chamber, I saw a thing, like a man, that told me to serve him. And I told him no, I would not do such a thing. The devil used to be a witch.
What clothes does he appear to you in?
Black clothes sometimes. He's a tall man with dark hair, I think.
What other likenesses besides a man doth he appear to you?
Sometimes like a hog. Sometimes like a great black dog. What did you say?
Tituba's lurid imagery seems to cast a spell on the afflicted girls.
Sometimes like a hog, sometimes like a great black dog.
I seen a yellow bird suck on another witch's finger.
I've seen a yellow bird suck on another witch's finger.
To have the servant of the minister confess to being a witch must have been mind-boggling to people.
What is really significant, though, from a legal point of view, is that Tituba has offered a confession. And that is the thing that matters the most. They have their confession. Now that they have their confession, the witchcraft is a reality.
Tituba does more than just confess. She offers up the names of her fellow witches.
Who else have you seen?
4 women. Sometimes hurt the children.
What did she say? Who were they?
Goody Osborne. And Sarah Good. And someone I didn't know. And a tall man.
One of the interesting things that Tituba said was that she had seen the Devil's Book and it had these other signatures in it, so that the people in the community would have known that they had to go look for other witches.
This is only an examination, not a trial. Magistrates Hathorne and Corwin do not have legal authority to convict and pass sentences, but they do have the power to place suspects in custody. Tituba is taken away to jail. along with 2 other witches. Sarah Good, a beggar with a bad temper, and Sarah Osborne, a woman of supposedly loose morals. Both deny vehemently that they are witches. But Tituba has mentioned more witches and wizards, 9 in all. That means 7 others are still at large in the village. The hunt is on. Martha Corey, about 60 years old, is a respectable church member married to a prosperous, though argumentative and uneducated farmer, Giles Corey.
The first 3 women accused were in one form or another outcasts in the village, which was really quite a typical pattern for incidents of witchcraft accusation.
Martha Corey was a full-fledged, full-covenant member of the Salem Village Church. If Martha Corey could be a witch, then anyone could be.
Ann Putnam Jr. and Mercy Lewis claim that Martha Corey's specter torments them.
She's Goody Corey's specter!
Her specter is loose.
Tormenting them!
You are now in the hands of authority. Tell me now why you hurt this person.
I do not.
Who does?
Pray, give me leave to go to prayer. I wish to go to prayer. Pray, give me leave
We
to
did
go
not
to
send
prayer.
for you to go to prayer. We came to be a terror to evildoers. Tell me why you hurt me.
I am an innocent person. I have never had to do with witchcraft since I was born. I am a gospel woman.
Do not you see how he's complaining of you?
Lord, open the eyes of the magistrates and ministers. Lord, show his power to discover the guilty.
Tell us who hurts these children.
I do not know.
In his examinations, Hathorne relies on what is called spectral evidence, a statement by a witness that she sees the specter of a witch do strange things.
When you signed the Devil's Book, essentially you gave the devil permission to take your shape and to torment others. That invisible shape was considered a specter.
What did he say to you?
We must not believe what all these distracted children say.
Cannot you tell what that man whispered?
I saw nobody.
But did you not hear?
No.
If you expect God's mercy, you must look for it in God's way, by confession. Do you not see how he's afflicted to charge you? Stop biting her lips! I order you to stop biting your lip. Look what you do to these girls.
What harm is there in it?
I can't unclench my hand! Stop cutting
Why do you let that bird stuck on your finger? Lord have mercy. Tell me why you hurt these children or who does.
But I have no hand in it. But you all will hate me now. How can I help it?
The more she objects, the more entangled she becomes. There is no way out of the madness.
The Aztecs engineer their empire with the help of human sacrifice. Tonight.
Because that's what being a civilized person is.
You are watching Witch Hunt on the History Channel.
Since the powers of darkness are turned upon us, 'tis a dark time. Yea, a black night indeed. Now the tie dogs of the pit are abroad among us. Must the very devils be sent out of their own place to be our troublers?
Salem Village, April 1692. Madness is in the air. Anything odd is seen as a sign of witchcraft. Wild stories are accepted as legal evidence, and everyone is a possible witch.
The floodgates opened in April and May so that more and more people were accused, people not just from Salem Village, but from Salem Town and the surrounding communities. It just festered very quickly, and you get a real sense that it suddenly became a panic.
By the end of April, there are 6 more accused witches. bringing the total held in jail to 10.
Salem was a primary jail, but it was really supposed to only operate for awaiting people to go to trial and not being a place where you put them for months at a time.
The wooden jail is a deep freeze in winter and an oven in summer.
Hygiene was basically some kind of a pot by one of the walls, and if you've got a lot of people and you don't change the pot on a regular basis, I think it was very, very difficult for them.
If a person is a witch, it is often assumed that her family might be as well. One of the first to be accused, Sarah Good, is jailed with her 4-year-old daughter, Dorcas. After 8 months in these conditions, the little girl will go insane. Anyone accused of witchcraft is guilty until proven innocent. No one has been convicted yet, but their lives are already ruined.
To levy a charge of witchcraft was in fact